Yeah, you spent really your career in philanthropy, advising others, learning. It's an area a lot of people want to get into once they've left full-time corporate careers. Where should somebody start if they're interested in, I guess it's giving back, isn't it? If that's part of what they'd like to do.
Yes, thanks, Victoria. That's a question that actually I get asked quite a lot, especially now with my new role at Cambridge University's Centre for Strategic Philanthropy, where we're looking at philanthropy and giving in emerging markets specifically. But it is a question that comes to us a lot, particularly people who've had very successful corporate careers and now want to do something perhaps different, but also with the enhanced sense of social purpose that I think we now see more broadly in communities, and particularly with COVID-19. And I think my advice to people first and foremost is that, yes, indeed, one should follow one's passion. So clearly they want to get involved in areas that they are particularly interested in, but also really think strongly about where can you add most value. A lot of third sector organizations are massively under-resourced, and sometimes just providing up new resources if they don't have absorption capacity can be a real challenge. So it's really important to think, what are the specific value adds that you can give to a third sector organization, and also to think who that organization might be. Are you interested in working with a local community group? Are you interested in working with a social enterprise, with a traditional charity, or maybe a foundation, or maybe something more recent like an impact fund? I mean, I think all of those are options, but it's really important to align your personal passion with your value add.
A lot of people seem to look at the giving back as becoming a trustee on a charity board. There seems to me there's two problems. Often they don't want to have that commitment. Once they've left corporate life, they don't want to be tied in one month, every month they have to have a meeting. But it always strikes me that's possibly not the best way to give value, the way that you're talking about. Is that really through a trustee, or do you think there are other better ways or additional ways, let's say, to add value?
So I think what we're seeing on the back of our research, on the back of COVID-19, that actually boards are super important in the third sector. And by the way, boards in the third sector often require less formal engagement than perhaps a commercial board might. So that's the one aspect around time commitment. But I think what we're seeing now is third sector organizations on the back of the crisis are getting more vocal about, again, the value add. So what can you bring to me as a board member? And I think it's important for individuals to be honest with themselves. So third sector organizations do need expertise. And third sector organizations are getting better at defining what expertise they need. So really looking at specific board roles and how you construct a board where each member brings a new skill or competence. So I think the option of supporting a third sector organization via board is a very good idea, but again, it's one that needs to be thought through. I think individual prospective trustees need to be very honest. First of all, of course, that they can make that time commitment, but also looking at other board members. Are they duplicating a skill that somebody else has? So if you're a banker and the charity already has somebody who's overseeing the finance, and you don't have other aspects that you can bring, then perhaps that's not the right board for you. It's really important. Again, these are often small, fragile organizations really striving for resilience and sustainability since the pandemic. So it's really important that individual board members bring a specific competence or expertise. And also increasingly, we're hearing third sector organizations say that the board is not just there to help them manage the day-to-day operations, or not oversee the day-to-day operations and provide input into the strategy, but also to link networks. And I think the kind of professionals that you're talking about are people who have incredible networks that small third sector organizations could only ever dream of. And if those individuals are now able to give access to those networks, that can be really empowering and build resilience. And we've heard that time and time again during the crisis, that we would like our board members to help us not just give the strategic overview and governance, but really connect us to people that can help.
So if somebody's starting out, I mean, we work with a lot of people as they leave transition, they call it, the corporate life. They haven't really got any idea where you start. Do you have suggestions about where would you recommend somebody starts that whole process?
So I would say there's probably 4 or 5 core options. So of course, one of the first things you can do, quite simply connecting to the point about networks, is mentoring. So a lot of third sector talent, a lot of very smart, capable young people who formerly might have wanted to go into the corporate sector are now choosing the third sector at the outset of their career. So mentoring that talent, I think that's hugely important, because these leaders of the third sector in the future are going to have to be even better equipped when it comes to business acumen, be able to access finance, even more complex versions of finance, build networks, build partnerships. So I think the mentoring role, but I think, as you will know better than I will, to become a mentor, one has to have the appetite and perhaps the ability to do it. So that's one option, mentoring talent inside the third sector. Second option, I would say, is a trustee role, as you suggested. But again, I think it's really important that the professional try to align not only with a charity or a social enterprise or a third sector entity that they're interested in, but also with their direct background and expertise. And I would say, I mentioned earlier bankers, but I would say that many third sector organizations struggle around financial acumen. I think there's a real gap in the third sector. So people coming from the corporate world who do have expertise of corporate finance, that is absolutely a skill that can be applied to the third sector. So not just day-to-day financial management of the organization, but also how do you go out into the market? How do you pitch for finance? And those skills and capabilities are not very different whether you're in the commercial or the social sector. So I think that's another option, obviously the board option. And there is the impact fund. So for those people who don't want to be so hands-on, perhaps you have individual wealth that you can contribute. Maybe at the moment you're just giving a small part of your portfolio as charitable donations, whereas actually you might be able to ring fence a portion of your personal investment portfolio for giving. And I think that's a huge opportunity for professionals to say, okay, maybe I'm going to take 5% of my overall portfolio and put it towards an impact fund. I mean, not only are impact funds growing in number, but they're also growing in performance capability. And I think it's an important space that is only going to get more interesting and more exciting. So I think that's also an option. And perhaps the final option would be then, as an individual, are you yourself interested in creating a third sector entity? Perhaps a social enterprise, perhaps you see something within your own community that you feel needs to be resolved, that could be done so by setting up a small business, a small venture where you engage local people in the community, or perhaps you're interested in setting up your own foundation to focus on those community issues, or even you have now concepts such as donor advised funds where that individual can channel funds to support a community issue. So I think there's multiple options for people at this stage of their career. What's important is thinking them through, and those two things. So how do I define and articulate my passion and align that with my corporate background and expertise and my current skills and competences, and then underpin that with the time and appetite that you have to engage in this giving back sector.